He was the kind of officer who never broke the rules. Not once. Not in 20 years. Until the day a dying prisoner looked him in the eye and said, "Before I go, I need you to deliver this." Just one small request. One letter. One final wish. Simple, right? Except the moment Officer Daniel Reed took that letter, his life began to unravel. Because the man who handed it to him, inmate Sherifor 265, wasn't just another prisoner. He was the reason Daniel's own brother was dead. Everyone told him not to open it, to follow procedure, to turn it in and forget. But Daniel couldn't. Something in that prisoner's voice, calm, certain, broken, made him stop seeing a criminal. He saw a man who knew something he didn't, and when he finally broke the seal and read the first line, everything he thought he knew about justice, loyalty, and the truth shattered. What was written inside that letter would not only expose what really happened the night his brother died, it would force Daniel to make a choice that would end his career, ruin his reputation, and cost him everything he had sworn to protect. Because sometimes, the hardest law to uphold is the one written on your own conscience. The prison was quieter than usual that night. No shouting. No rattling of metal trays. No cell doors slamming. Just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant drip of leaking pipes echoing down the hallway. Officer Daniel Reed adjusted his badge as he walked his rounds, boots clicking on concrete. Routine kept him sane. Order, discipline, those were the things that made sense in a place built on chaos. He'd spent 20 years enforcing rules inside Stonebridge Correctional Facility. He'd seen everything, fights, fires, confessions whispered through steel bars. But that night, something felt different. The warden's voice crackled through the radio. "Reed, Block C, inmate 4265 wants to see you." Daniel frowned. "At this hour?" "Doctor says it's urgent." "The man's dying." Daniel's hand tightened around the radio. He knew that number. Everyone did. Inmate 4265. Real name Marcus Cole. Convicted of armed robbery and manslaughter. The same man responsible for the warehouse explosion that killed Daniel's younger brother Evan 12 years ago. Daniel hesitated outside the infirmary door. He'd imagined this man 1,000 times. Ruthless, remorseless. The kind of criminal that made you believe in the death penalty. But when he stepped inside, the image shattered. Marcus Cole was barely more than a shadow under thin hospital sheets. Gaunt, pale, eyes sunk deep. Tubes snaked from his arms. The machines around him beeped slow, steady reminders that time was running out. The nurse looked up. "He doesn't have long." "He's been asking for you by name." Daniel nodded stiffly. "Give us a minute." She hesitated, then slipped out the door. Marcus turned his head, lips cracking into a faint smile. "Didn't think you'd come." Daniel kept his voice even. "I almost didn't." "Can't blame you." Marcus coughed, the sound dry and sharp. "But I need to ask you something." "A favor." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't grant favors to killers." Marcus didn't flinch. "Maybe not. But this one's not for me." He reached for the nightstand, fingers trembling, and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed with a wax stamp. Old-fashioned, deliberate. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "My last wish," Marcus said quietly. "I want you to deliver this letter." Daniel folded his arms. "To who?" Marcus smiled faintly. "You'll see the name on it. Someone who deserves to know the truth." Daniel took a step back. "You can tell the truth right here. I'm not running errands for a convict." Marcus's breathing grew shallow. "Please, I can't die with this secret." Something in his voice, raw, fragile, almost human, stopped Daniel cold. Marcus coughed again, blood speckling his lips. "You think I don't know who you are, Officer Reed? You think I don't remember that night? Your brother. He wasn't supposed to die." Daniel's pulse spiked. "Don't you dare!" "I didn't set that fire," Marcus whispered. "I tried to stop it." Daniel froze. The room tilted, the steady beep of the heart monitor suddenly deafening. Marcus pressed the envelope into his hand. "If you want answers, deliver it. Don't open it. Just take it to her." Her. The words snagged on Daniel's mind. Marcus coughed again, each breath shorter than the last. "You'll understand when you see her." Daniel stared at the envelope. The wax seal was deep red, stamped with an unfamiliar symbol, 2 crossed wings and a single tear. "Why me?" he asked. "Because," Marcus said with a weak smile, "you're the only one who'll care enough to finish it." Then the monitor flatlined. The nurse rushed in, shouting for help, but Daniel just stood there, the letter still in his hand, heavy as a verdict. He didn't sleep that night. The letter sat on his kitchen table, lit by a single lamp. He'd promised not to open it, but promises made to dying men meant little when they were murderers. He poured himself a drink, stared at the seal. He told himself he was just curious, that this wasn't personal. But when he finally broke the wax, his hands were shaking. Inside was a folded sheet of paper and a photograph. The picture was old, grainy. 2 boys standing beside a truck smiling. One was Marcus. The other was Evan. Daniel's heart stopped. His brother, 12 years dead. He unfolded the letter. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. My name isn't Marcus Cole. That was the name I took when I came to Stonebridge. Your brother wasn't a victim. He was my partner. And the fire that night wasn't an accident. Daniel's breath came shallow, ragged. We were working for someone. Someone who didn't want the truth to come out. Your brother found out too late. He tried to stop it, and I couldn't save him. But there's one person who can tell you everything. Her name's Lila Carter. She's in Crescent Falls. Deliver this letter to her. She deserves to know what he died for." At the bottom of the page was one more line, written in shaking ink. "Trust no one in uniform." Daniel sat in silence for a long time. The walls seemed to close in. He thought about the reports, the investigation, the way the department had shut the case after a week. Gas leak, they'd said. Open and shut. And now this. He didn't know whether to burn the letter or follow it. But by dawn, he already knew what he was going to do. He packed a small bag, left his badge on the counter, and drove toward Crescent Falls. The rain started halfway there. Thick sheets that blurred the road, turning the world into a wash of headlights and fog. The town appeared like a ghost out of the storm. Faded signs, peeling paint, an old diner flickering in the distance. He found the address scribbled on the back of the letter. 103 Willow Street. A small white house with a porch light still burning. He parked across the street and sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel. He didn't know what he'd say, didn't know what he'd find, but something deep down, something older than anger, told him this was the only way forward. He stepped out into the rain and walked to the door. When it opened, a woman stood there, mid-30s, tired eyes. "Yes?" she said. Daniel held up the envelope. "I have something for you. From Marcus Cole." The color drained from her face. "Marcus?" "He's gone," Daniel said quietly. "He wanted you to have this." Her hands trembled as she took it. She looked at the seal, then at him. "You read it?" Daniel hesitated. "Yes. Then you know." "Know what?" Her eyes filled with tears. "That your brother didn't die a hero, and neither did Marcus." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She opened the letter slowly, eyes scanning the page. Her lips parted in disbelief. "He told you part of it, but not the rest." "What rest?" Lila looked up, voice breaking. They weren't just partners. They were brothers. For a long moment, Daniel just stood there, rain dripping from his coat, words sinking like stones. "They were brothers," he repeated. Lila nodded slowly, her hand shaking as she held the letter. "Half-brothers. Different fathers. Marcus never told anyone. Not even me, not at first." Daniel stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. The warmth of the small house felt foreign after the cold outside. The air smelled faintly of coffee and dust. A life lived quietly. He followed her into the living room, where framed photos lined the mantel, none of them recent. She gestured for him to sit. "He didn't. You knew him?" he asked. Better than anyone, Lila said softly. Marcus wasn't a good man, but he wasn't the monster they painted him to be. He made mistakes, terrible ones, but he spent the rest of his life trying to fix them. Daniel's voice hardened. By killing my brother? Her eyes flashed. He didn't kill Evan. Daniel clenched his fists. Then who did? Lila hesitated, looking at the letter again. I think you should read the rest. He frowned. I did read it, she shook her head. No, you didn't. She turned the paper over. On the back, written faintly in pencil, were a few more lines. There's a file. Evan hid it before the fire. Find it, and you'll know the truth. Ask Lila. She knows where to look. Daniel's pulse quickened. What file? Lila walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a thick, worn Bible. From inside the hollowed pages, she drew a small metal key. This, she said, holding it out to him, is for a locker at the old bus depot. Marcus made me promise to keep it safe. I don't know what's inside, only that it scared him. Daniel took the key. You've had this all these years? Lila nodded. I was waiting for him to come back. Why didn't you tell the police? She gave a bitter laugh. Who do you think told them where to find him? I did. I thought it would keep him safe. I didn't know what they'd do to him in there. Daniel studied her face. Grief lived in her eyes, old and heavy. He couldn't tell if she was lying, or just too broken to keep lying anymore. He pocketed the key. Where's the depot? 2 miles outside of town, she said quietly. But be careful, Officer Reed. Whatever's in that locker, Marcus didn't want anyone else to have it. The depot was nothing more than a skeleton of steel and dust. Once, it had been the heart of Crescent Falls. Buses lined in neat rows, families waving goodbye under the tin roof. Now it was abandoned, the windows broken, the floor slick with rain leaking through the ceiling. Daniel moved through the dark with his flashlight, every sound amplified. The scuttle of rats, the groan of metal, the echo of water dripping in the distance. Locker 38. That's what was written on the key. When he found it, his pulse stuttered. The locker was dented, rusted, but still intact. He slid the key into the lock and turned it. The click was deafening in the silence. Inside was a box, small, black, and sealed with tape that had long since cracked. He lifted it out, set it on a nearby bench, and carefully tore it open. Inside were photos, documents, newspaper clippings, and at the very bottom, a flash drive. He plugged it into his old work laptop, the one he kept in the car. A single file appeared on the screen. EvanReport.pdf. Daniel clicked. The document opened with an official header, Stonebridge Correctional Oversight Committee. His breath caught. His brother's name was listed under Investigating Officer. Subject: Unauthorized financial transactions between prison staff and external contractors. Evidence of smuggling and bribery involving multiple officers, including Warden Henry Calloway. Daniel's stomach dropped. Calloway, the same man who had been his commanding officer for 15 years. He scrolled further. Evan Reed obtained photographic evidence. A meeting was scheduled for July 12th to present findings. Fire occurred July 11th. The next line made his blood run cold. Final note: Marcus Cole agreed to testify in exchange for protection. He and I plan to meet that night. If anything happens to me, assume Calloway knows. Daniel's hands trembled. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a random fire. The warden, the man who'd pinned a medal on Daniel's chest, had ordered his brother's death. He felt sick, betrayed. The walls of the car seemed to close in as the rain hammered against the windshield. By the time he got back to town, it was nearly midnight. He needed answers, and there was only one person left who could give them. The warden. Stonebridge Correctional loomed ahead, floodlights slicing through the fog. The guards at the gate let him through without question. He still looked like one of them, even if his badge was gone. He found Calloway in his office, as always, drinking coffee that smelled more like whiskey. The older man looked up, surprised. "Reed, didn't expect to see you off shift. Daniel closed the door behind him. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Evan." The warden's eyes narrowed. "What about him?" Daniel dropped the flash drive on the desk. "He was investigating you." Calloway's expression didn't change. Not at first. Then his jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have that." "I have everything," Daniel said, voice low. "The files, the testimony, the proof you paid inmates to smuggle contraband out of Stonebridge. Evan found out. You killed him for it." For a second, the warden just stared at him. Then he laughed. Cold, slow, cruel. "You think I killed your brother? You think I'd risk everything for a file?" Daniel's hands curled into fists. "You had motive, opportunity, and alibi," Calloway interrupted. "I was in a board meeting that night." "Ask anyone," Daniel's voice sharpened. "Then who did it?" The warden leaned back, eyes glinting. "Maybe you should ask your inmate friend." "Oh, wait, he's dead." Daniel took a step forward. "You're lying." "Am I?" Calloway's tone was casual, dangerous. "Evan wasn't as innocent as you think. He was part of it, Reed. He took the money, too." Daniel's breath caught. "No," Calloway smirked. "Everyone's dirty in this business, son. Some of us just hide it better." Daniel drove for hours after that, aimless, furious, lost. Could it be true? Had Evan been part of it? No, he couldn't believe that. His brother had been the moral one, the one who'd joined the force to make things right. But the words wouldn't leave him alone. He stopped the car by the side of the road and pulled out the flash drive again, rereading every line, every detail. Then he saw it, an attachment, a single image file he hadn't noticed before. He opened it. The photo showed a dimly lit office, Evan sitting across from Calloway, a briefcase on the desk. Both men's faces visible. Calloway smiling, Evan signing something. Daniel zoomed in on the paper. It was a transfer authorization, a fund movement from an anonymous donor. Amount, $50,000. Recipient, Evan Reed. His world cracked open. He didn't remember getting home. Didn't remember pouring the drink or the glass shattering in his hand. All he remembered was the sound of rain and the weight of betrayal. Evan wasn't who he thought he was. Neither was Marcus. Neither was the man who'd taught him everything about justice. Everyone had been lying. Everyone but the dead. He sat there until dawn, staring at the photograph. Then his phone buzzed. A new message, unknown number. "You don't know the whole story. Meet me where it started." No name. No signature. Daniel frowned. Where it started. The warehouse. The place where Evan died. The building still stood, half burned, fenced off, but not forgotten. He climbed through a gap in the chain link and stepped inside. The air smelled of rust and ashes. The ghosts of that night lived in every corner. "Reed," a voice called softly. Daniel turned. Claire, the nurse from the infirmary, the one who'd been there when Marcus died. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. She stepped closer, her face pale in the dawn light. "Marcus told me you'd come. He wanted me to tell you the rest." "The rest of what?" "The real reason your brother died." Daniel's pulse quickened. "You know?" She nodded. "Marcus didn't kill him. The fire wasn't started to silence Evan. It was started to save him." He froze. "That doesn't make sense." Claire looked away. "It will." She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, the same one of Marcus and Evan he'd found earlier. But this time there was a third man standing behind them. Calloway. Only this photo was taken before the fire. "Your brother found out Calloway was trafficking inmates for money," Claire said softly. "He was going to go public. Marcus tried to protect him, but Calloway's men set the fire early. Evan was trapped inside. Marcus went back to pull him out." Daniel's throat tightened. "Why didn't he say any of this?" "Because he knew no one would believe a convict over a warden." Daniel stared at the photo again. The truth was there, not in words but in the faces. Marcus's fear, Evan's guilt, Calloway's calm. Everything was backwards. Justice, loyalty, truth, all blurred together into one endless loop of betrayal. Claire touched his arm. "He wanted you to forgive him." "Both of them did." Daniel shook his head. I don't even know who to forgive anymore." He drove back to the city as the sun rose, gold bleeding into gray. The roads were empty. The letter, the files, the photos, they all sat on the seat beside him, pieces of a puzzle he couldn't put together. At the next red light, he looked at the envelope again. The wax seal, broken days ago, still faintly glistened under the light, and for the first time he realized it wasn't a symbol of wings, it was a badge, the Stonebridge Correctional insignia. The system had marked the letter itself. They'd known about it all along, which meant someone in uniform had watched Marcus die, knowing exactly what that letter contained, and maybe, just maybe, the real secret wasn't who killed Evan, but who covered it up. The photograph wouldn't leave his mind. Calloway, Evan, Marcus, 3 men bound by a lie that had cost everything. Daniel sat in his car outside the precinct, the morning light cutting across the windshield. His uniform hung in the back seat, pressed and clean, a symbol that felt like a lie now. The badge glinted faintly in the glove box, silent, accusing. He had spent his life believing justice came from the uniform. But what if justice had been buried beneath it? He opened his phone and played the last recording again, the one Marcus had left in the infirmary. His voice was faint, broken, but there was something in the background that had nagged at Daniel for days. He turned up the volume. There it was again, the faint sound of a siren, but not the usual kind. It was a short, double-tone whistle used only by correctional officers during internal alerts, the kind of whistle the warden carried. He rewound it and listened again. This time, he heard something else, a second voice, distant but recognizable. "Turn it off, Marcus." "He'll find out," Evan, Daniel's pulse thundered. He paused the recording, staring at the timestamp. The audio had been recorded the night before the fire, not the day Marcus died. That meant Marcus had never recorded a confession. Someone had edited it, and that someone had wanted Daniel to hear exactly what they wanted him to believe. By noon, Daniel was sitting in a diner outside town, the laptop open on the counter. The flash drive still held files, some of them password-protected. He'd cracked open the easier ones. Transaction logs, phone records, internal memos, they all led to one thing: money. Large amounts of it, funneled through a dummy company named Haven Logistics, and at the top of every document was the same signature, Henry Calloway. Daniel leaned back, exhaling. His coffee had gone cold. Every instinct he had as an officer screamed to turn this in, to take it to internal affairs, to blow the whistle. But Marcus's words echoed in his head. "Trust no one in uniform." He looked around the diner. A couple of truckers, an old man reading the paper, a waitress humming softly. Everything looked normal, ordinary. But he knew better now. Normal was just what corruption looked like when it put on a tie. He pulled out his phone and called Lila. She answered on the second ring, voice wary. "Daniel, I need to see you. Is it about the files?" "Yes, and about the warden," a pause. Then softly, "I'll be home." Her house was quiet when he arrived, the same faint smell of coffee in the air. Lila sat at the table, a cup in front of her she hadn't touched. Her eyes were red. "You look like you haven't slept," Daniel said. "Neither have you," she replied. He slid the laptop across the table. "You need to see this." She scrolled through the documents, her hands trembling. "I don't understand." "The warden, he was paying off contractors?" "For what?" "Not contractors," Daniel said. "Trafficking routes. They were using inmates, transferring them under fake names, making them disappear." Lila's hand flew to her mouth. "God," Daniel nodded. "Evan found out. That's why they killed him." She looked up. "And Marcus?" "He tried to stop it, maybe to protect your father, maybe to make it right. Either way, they needed him silenced too." For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of a wall clock. Then Lila whispered, "You're going after Calloway." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I have to. You'll lose everything. I already did." By sunset, Daniel was back at Stonebridge. He parked near the back gate, the one staff used when they didn't want to be seen. The air was heavy, storm clouds rolling in again. the same kind of night Evan had died. He slipped through the corridor leading to the warden's office. The halls were empty, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint buzz of intercom static. When he reached the door, he didn't knock. He just pushed it open. Calloway looked up, startled. "Reed, what the hell are you doing here?" Daniel dropped a stack of papers on his desk. "You want to tell me what Haven Logistics is?" The warden's eyes flicked to the folder, then back to him. "Careful, son." "You had my brother killed." Calloway's tone hardened. "Watch yourself." Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. "Say it." The warden leaned back, lips curling into a thin smile. "You really think your brother was innocent?" "He was taking bribes. He got scared, wanted out. Marcus Cole tried to help him disappear, and the fire covered the mess." "That's not what the files say." Calloway chuckled. "Files can be written by anyone, especially dead men." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then why the offshore accounts, Henry? Why the transfers under your wife's name?" The warden's smile faltered. Daniel continued. "I know about the inmate transfers, the ghost IDs, the money laundering. You've been running a private pipeline through this prison for years." Calloway's hand drifted toward his drawer. Daniel's hand went to his gun. "Don't," Daniel said. For a moment, neither moved. The air between them buzzed like a live wire. Then Calloway's smile returned. Thinner, colder. "You think you're the first to find out?" Evan did, too. "He thought he could bring me down. And now he's dead." Daniel's trigger finger twitched. Calloway leaned forward. "You shoot me and they'll call you the next corrupt cop. I built this place, Reed. I own every badge in it. Including yours." Daniel's voice broke. "Not anymore." He tossed his badge onto the desk. "You don't own me." He turned and walked out before the warden could reply. The storm hit as he drove away, hard rain slamming the windshield, thunder rolling over the hills. He pulled over near the bridge, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding. He'd done what he came to do. Exposed the truth. But now what? He couldn't go back to the force. He couldn't stay silent. He had one option left. Go public. He called a number from memory. An old contact, Julia Myers, a reporter who'd once covered Stonebridge scandals. She answered groggily. "Daniel Reed," he said. "I have a story." "You sound like you're about to get fired." "Worse," he said. "I'm about to burn the whole department down." They met an hour later at a roadside diner. Daniel brought everything. The files, the recordings, the photo, the flash drive. Julia listened in silence, her recorder running. When he finished, she leaned back. "You realize if I publish this, they'll come after both of us." "I'm counting on it." She studied him for a moment. "Why now?" Daniel looked out the window. "Because my brother died believing the truth mattered. I won't let him be the last one who did." Julia nodded. "I'll need time to verify this." "Not too much time," Daniel said. "They'll know I'm on to them." He slid her the flash drive. "Everything's there." By the next morning, the story hit every major outlet. Whistleblower officer exposes corruption at Stonebridge Correctional. Daniel's name wasn't in the first headline, but everyone in the department knew who it was. By noon, his phone was blowing up. Reporters, colleagues, threats. He ignored them all. He went to see Lila one last time. She met him at the door, eyes wide. "It's all over the news." "I know. They'll come after you." "I'm not afraid of them." Lila reached for his hand. "Then be afraid for me. They'll come for anyone tied to Marcus, anyone who knows." Daniel's heart clenched. "You need to leave town." She shook her head. "It's too late for that. There's something you need to see." She led him inside and handed him another envelope. "This came in the mail this morning." "No return address." He opened it. Inside was a single photo. Calloway in handcuffs being led out of the prison, and behind him, barely visible in the crowd, a familiar face watching, Ethan, Evan's eyes, Marcus's jawline. But younger, Lila's voice trembled. "He's alive, isn't he?" Daniel stared at the photo. "Not him," he whispered. "Their son." Lila's breath caught. "Marcus had a son." Daniel nodded slowly. "And he just made his first move." That night, the news spread fast. Calloway had been arrested, charged with conspiracy and corruption. But before dawn, he was found dead in his cell. Suicide, they said. Daniel didn't believe it. Not for a second. He sat on his porch, the rain returning in slow, steady drips, his phone buzzing with unanswered calls. He'd won. The truth was out. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like silence. He opened the letter again, tracing the faded ink where Marcus had written, "Trust no one in uniform." He whispered, "I didn't." Then he noticed something he hadn't before, a faint second layer of writing beneath the words, barely visible under the light. He tilted the page. There it was, scratched into the paper. "If I'm gone, find the boy." His pulse quickened. He thought back to the photo. The young man in the background watching Calloway's arrest. The resemblance to Marcus was unmistakable. The son. The missing link. Daniel grabbed his jacket and headed for the car. Somewhere out there, a new piece of the story had just begun, and it was still writing itself. He found the boy that night. Or rather, the boy found him. Daniel's headlights cut through the rain-soaked parking lot of the old church where Evan's memorial plaque still hung. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Young, maybe 20, soaked to the bone. "Officer Reed?" the boy asked. Daniel stopped. "Who are you?" "My name's Eli," he said quietly. "Eli Carter, Marcus's son." Daniel swallowed hard. "You've been watching me." Eli nodded. "You were supposed to find the letter sooner. My father wanted me to make sure you did." Daniel frowned. "You knew about all of this?" "I know more than you think," Eli said. "And it's not over." He stepped closer, pulling something from his coat, another envelope identical to the first. He said this was the last one. "But it's not for you." Daniel stared. "Then who?" Eli met his eyes. "For whoever comes after you." Lightning flashed behind him, illuminating the rain. For a split second, Daniel thought he saw something else. A car idling at the edge of the lot, someone watching. When he looked again, it was gone. Eli turned to leave. "Wait," Daniel called. "Where are you going?" Eli glanced back. "To finish what my father started." Then he disappeared into the storm. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the streets slick and silver under a gray sky. Daniel drove without direction. His thoughts spun like the wipers across the windshield. Eli Carter, Marcus's son, alive, watching, waiting. The letter in his hand, the one Eli had given him, felt heavier than the first. He hadn't opened it yet. He wasn't sure if he could. He parked near the lake, the same place Evan used to bring him fishing when they were kids. The water was still. The reflection of clouds rippled across its surface. He turned the envelope over in his hands. The wax seal was the same, that red insignia, half badge, half wings. The same mark that had started all of this. He broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter written in the same rough hand as Marcus's, but the ink was darker, bolder. It wasn't Marcus's writing this time. It was Eli's, Officer Reed. "If you're reading this, it means my father's plan worked, at least the part he could finish before they silenced him. He wanted the truth to live past his death. He wanted it to reach you, because you were the only one who ever looked at him and still saw a man, not a monster." Daniel's throat tightened. You exposed Calloway, but he wasn't alone. He was just one part of a chain. There's another name, another badge. The man behind everything. The one who built the system that used both my father and your brother. Daniel read the next line slowly, heart pounding. Deputy Commissioner Richard Hale. The name hit him like a punch. Hale, the man who had personally attended Evan's funeral. The man who had shaken his hand and told him, "Your brother died a hero." Daniel kept reading. Hale created Haven Logistics. He used Calloway to move money and inmates. When Evan found out, Hale ordered Calloway to clean it up. My father was caught in the middle. He tried to save your brother, but Hale made sure the story died with the fire. Now he's trying to erase what's left. Me. If I disappear, tell them everything. Use the tape in the safe house. The code is 422225. You'll know where to find it. Eli Carter. Daniel folded the letter slowly. The air felt heavier. He knew what he had to do. The safe house. There was only one place the number 422225 made sense, an address. 42225 Ridge Avenue on the outskirts of the city. An old surveillance property once used for undercover operations. Daniel drove fast. The city thinned into woods, the road narrowing, the rain starting again in a fine mist. When he reached the property, the chain gate was already open. Someone had been there. He parked quietly and moved through the overgrown yard, gun drawn. The cabin was small, single-story, the windows covered. The door hung slightly ajar. Inside smelled of damp wood and metal. Papers were scattered across a table, and on the far side of the room, a small safe stood open. Inside, a black recorder blinked red. Still running. He pressed play. "This is Eli Carter," the recording began. His voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the fear under it. "If you're hearing this, they've found me. Hale's men are cleaning house. My father warned me. Corruption doesn't die, it evolves. Hale's been using new names, new companies, new prisons, a noise in the background. Footsteps, a door creaking. If anything happens, tell Officer Reed. Tell him the truth wasn't just about my father or his brother. It's about the system that made them enemies in the first place." Then a loud bang. The recording cut off. Daniel froze. He rewound it, listening again. This time he caught it. A faint voice after the gunshot. Not Eli's. Older, calm, clean it up. Hale. Daniel called Julia. She answered immediately. "Reed, where are you?" "Ridge Avenue. I found Eli's recording." "Send it to me." He hesitated. "No, not yet. If they intercept it—" "Daniel," she cut in. "They already know. There's a warrant out for your arrest." He went still. "What?" "They're calling it obstruction and evidence tampering. Hale's making his move. You need to disappear." He hung up before she could say more. He'd been framed. The same playbook they'd used on Marcus, on Evan, on anyone who got too close. He pocketed the recorder and turned to leave. Outside, a car engine roared to life. Headlights cut through the mist. Daniel dove for cover as bullets shattered the window beside him. He rolled behind the porch, drawing his weapon. Another shot cracked through the rain. The car pulled forward, slow, deliberate. Then a voice, amplified by a loudspeaker. "Reed, you've made this harder than it had to be." Hale. Daniel's jaw clenched. "You don't have to do this." "Neither did your brother," Hale said. "But here we are." The car door opened. Two men stepped out, armed, masked. Daniel fired first. One dropped. The other ducked behind the hood. The air filled with gunfire echoing through the trees. Then silence. Rain hissed on metal. Steam rose from the car's hood. Hale's voice again, calm as ever. "Walk away, Reed. No one will know." "I can make it all disappear," Daniel shouted back. "You killed my brother." "No," Hale said quietly. "Your brother chose wrong. So did Marcus. Don't make it 3. Daniel's hand trembled. He looked at the recorder in his palm. Proof. The final piece. He tucked it inside his jacket and ran for the woods. The forest was thick and dark, the ground slick with mud. Behind him, flashlights cut through the mist. Dogs barked in the distance. He ran until his lungs burned. The rain turned to fog, the trees twisting like shadows. He found an old ranger tower and climbed it, 2 steps at a time. From the top, he could see the whole valley, the prison lights in the distance, the highway, the storm clouds rolling in again. He pulled out his phone and played the recording one last time. Then he uploaded it to Julia's encrypted drive. The signal flickered, weak, then turned green. Uploaded. Hale's voice would go public within hours. Daniel leaned against the railing, breathing hard. He could hear the dogs closing in below. "Reed!" Hale's voice echoed faintly through the woods. "It doesn't matter what you send. People don't care about truth. They care about order," Daniel shouted back. "Order built on lies isn't justice." The woods fell silent again. Then the faint crack of a rifle. The bullet grazed his shoulder, spinning him backward. He dropped to the floor, pain ripping through his arm. Another shot splintered the railing. He reached for his radio. Julia, static. He dragged himself toward the ladder, vision blurring, rain mixing with blood. His hand slipped, but he gripped the rung tighter. Then headlights appeared below, a car cutting through the trees. Eli, the boy jumped out, sprinting toward the tower. "Officer Reed!" Daniel shouted, "Get back!" But Eli climbed anyway, fast, determined. He reached the top and grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him up. "You're hurt," Eli said. "You shouldn't be here." Eli shook his head. "You saved my father's name." "Let me save yours." He lifted Daniel's phone. "It's done." "The recording's live," Daniel exhaled. "Then it's over." Eli looked out at the flashing lights closing in. "No," he said softly. "It's just starting." By morning, the world had changed. The recording spread like wildfire. Every news channel played Hale's voice. Every headline screamed corruption, cover-up, conspiracy. Hale was arrested hours later, alive but disgraced. Daniel survived the wound. They called him a whistleblower, a hero, a traitor. The department divided. Investigations opened. Names surfaced. Stonebridge Correctional shut down. But for Daniel, there was no celebration. He sat in the same diner where he'd met Julia, a sling on his arm, coffee cooling in front of him. She slid into the booth. "You did it," he shook his head. "We did what we had to," she smiled faintly. "So what now?" Daniel stared out the window at the rain beginning again. "Now I start over. Without the badge, without the lies." Julia reached across the table. "And Eli?" "He disappeared after the arrest. No one's seen him since." Julia nodded slowly. "Maybe that's for the best." Daniel looked down at the letter one last time. The first one. The one that started it all. Marcus's handwriting. Faded, but clear. Some truths are meant to break you. Others are meant to build what comes next. He folded it carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Outside, thunder rolled again. Softer this time, like a heartbeat slowing after a long fight. A week later, Daniel visited the cemetery. The grass was wet, the headstones glistening. He knelt by Evan's grave and set the letter on the stone. "You were right," he whispered. The truth mattered. He stood to leave. Across the cemetery, a figure watched from under an umbrella. Young, motionless. Eli. Daniel met his eyes. They nodded to each other once. Then Eli turned and disappeared into the fog. For the first time in years, Daniel smiled. Not because it was over, but because the fight had finally meant something. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was alive again, and that was enough. Some stories end in silence. Others end in rain. But for Daniel Reed, it ended with truth. Raw, messy, and unforgiving. He learned that justice isn't the badge you wear. It's the choices you make when no one's watching. He learned that sometimes heroes don't survive the story. They leave behind the people brave enough to finish it. Marcus's letter was more than a dying man's wish. It was a mirror, reflecting the best and worst of everyone who touched it. A prisoner, a brother, an officer torn between duty and conscience, and in the end, that single act of mercy, delivering a letter meant for someone else, tore down an empire built on lies. The truth spread farther than any cell block or courtroom. It lived on in those who chose to believe it mattered. And maybe that's the real victory. Not the arrest, not the headlines, but the moment when one man realized that even the smallest act of compassion can change the entire course of justice. Because the real story was never about a prisoner or a cop. It was about redemption, and the price of finally telling the truth. If you thought this story was powerful, wait until you hear the next one. It starts with another letter, only this time, the person reading it isn't alive to send it. Grab my free storytelling guide below. It breaks down exactly how I craft emotional tension, pacing, and plot twists like this one. You'll want it before the next story drops. Because when it does, you'll never look at the word truth the same way again.